There you go. This is Clone 72 Chardonnay. You can see here the hen and chickens are what we call these cluster morphology, or the shot berry selection. It's when the berries are smaller than the larger berries in the cluster, and so you have a really great mix of phenolics and acidity in these clusters. It's one of our favorite cluster clonal selections of Chardonnay to work with because of that beautiful acidity. And around the world, it's been taken around the world by Dr. Harry Olmo in the 60s. And in Argentina, it's known as the Mendoza clone, and in Australia, it's known as the Gingin clone. This is our Concinnitas Farm Massal Selection Chardonnay, and the whole block was just planted with several different clones of Chardonnay from 72, so shot berry selections, which you can see here, through to 76, 104, 107, and 87. So lots of different clusters, gives us lots of different complexity and diversity in our flavor profile. This is some gorgeous Gadeo that we have just picked off of Concinnitas Farm. This is our organic Gadeo, and we're super excited about this year because this is the first fruit of Gadeo off of Concinnitas, and it's going into a Iberian blend, a co-fermentation that we're going to do with this beautiful Mencia that is also our first Mencia off of Concinnitas Farm as well. Look at Mencia, it's so much like Syrah and Mondouse. It's very, very similar, but look how big these clusters are. It's insane. It's so good, and makes some of the most, well, I think it makes some of the most elegant and terroir specific wines in Spain. So I'm excited to see what it can do here in the Willamette Valley. Co-ferments happen. Gadeo, Gadeo, Gadeo. With Mencia, Mencia, Mencia. So excited. Co-ferments are the best. Stemmed Mencia on top of Gadeo. Our first blocks of fruit from these Iberian vines planted at Concinnitas Vineyard. Okay, so we are out sampling Gamay Noir in the Willamette Valley and stumbled across something that we think is really rare, but maybe not for Gamay Noir since this is a relatively new grape variety here. This is the fruiting zone, or the fruiting wire, and this is the first crop of Gamay that we aim to sample and make into high quality Gamay Noir. Then you have this second crop of fruit here that's up in the second and third wires. And then look at this vigorous little guy. Now we've got a third crop of Gamay starting out. So who knows, we might be able to harvest like sparkling Gamay Noir and table wine Gamay Noir at the same time. Thoroughly crushed Sauvignon. Concinnitas, first Sauvignon. Oh shit, it's vintage 2024 limited edition, and we are here in the cellar with some skin contact Pinot Gris that we are doing some cap management on. So what we're doing here is called a punch down, and this is where we are wetting the cap, which is the grapes that are forming on top here. And during fermentation, especially with native yeast fermentation, when the grapes are sitting on top here and starting to dry out, this is where we're going to get some different microbial activity happening. So what we want to do is open this up, air it out, and then make sure that all of the cap gets wet thoroughly again. And this is also helping in a very gentle extraction. So other ways of doing cap management are to use a hose and pump and do what's called pump overs, and that would bring juice from the bottom up and over the top, and we would wet the cap that way. And that's one way of doing it. But I find, especially with Pinot Gris, that it pulls out just a little bit too much tannin. And so from my skin contact Pinot Gris, I'm looking for the flavor that's in the skin of the Pinot Gris grapes, but I'm not looking to extract all of that really harsh tannin, which can start to come at the end of the fermentation as alcohol becomes a solvent and starts to pull out more of the bitterness in the grape skins. So cap management we typically do twice a day, in the morning when we get in first thing in the cellar, and just as we're about to leave in the evening. We are doing some whole cluster fermentation on our Pinot Noir today. So you can see we are dumping Pinot Noir clusters into the fermenter, and we're meticulously picking out the leaves, and then we are foot treading them to get rid of any of the air pockets. We don't want air pockets in the fermenter because that's a breeding ground for bacteria and other nasty things that can ruin a fermentation and take away the aromas. Why are we doing a whole cluster fermentation on Pinot Noir? Well, as you can see in the fruit there, you can see that the stems are going quite brown and what we call lignified. And once those stems are starting to lignify, we start to get more complex flavors that can come out of those stems. They will also add to the mouthfeel and also to the texture of the wine, giving some woodsy sappiness, but also increasing the pH through a potassium shift that will give us a broader, rounder mouthfeel on the palate as well. And in a cool vintage like we're having in 2024, which is a really fantastic vintage for Pinot Noir right now in the Willamette Valley, this is something that we are happy to work with to build out a more complex and round Pinot Noir palate profile. Foot treading whole cluster Pinot Noir. This is from Cy Vineyard in the Yamhill Carlton AVA. Whole cluster gives it lots of nice spice and cinnamon, and it's like having a spice rack in your Pinot Noir. That's why we like whole cluster.
So pretty.
So right now I am inside a wine press, and all of these, you can see with my headlamp on, all of those grapes are the pressed Pinot Gris skins of our skin fermented Pinot Gris that goes into our orange crush. So this is what the inside of a press looks like. On one side we have perforations where the juice comes out, and then on the other we have what we call a bladder. And the bladder expands and inflates and pushes the grapes against the grate here. So what we're doing with this bladder is, as the bars of pressure go up, the grapes are getting squeezed against this wall very gently, and all of the juice is coming out. Now, depending on how hard we press, that really depends on the style of wine we're making. If we're making a very tannic red wine, if we're making a rosé, if we're making a white wine, basically the process is all the same. It's just whether we're dealing with fresh grapes and fresh juice to make white wine or rosé, or if we're dealing with fermented skins and red wine. So we drain out the red wine first, dump the skins in here, the bladder inflates, it squeezes up, and we decide how much we want to inflate the press to pull out how much tannins for the style of wine that we're making. Our beautiful Muscat, destined for our orange crush, getting weighed. Then next we are going to send it up the escalator and destem it, because we want to crush the berries and get some juice out. This press likes to snow cone everything. this awesome muscat. It is huge berries, so fragrant. This is when you wish that Instagram was scratch and sniff. So what we're doing right now is de-stemming and slightly crushing our muscat grapes. It's because muscat is a grape that doesn't actually have a lot of juiciness to it. It's really fleshy. It's almost like looking at like lychee. You know, when you peel a lychee or a lychee, that's the kind of flesh that muscat is. And so it doesn't really yield a lot of juice. And so we're trying to pre-crush it a little bit, just so that we can get it in the press and get some really good yields out of it, because this is a really important component of our orange crush, which it brings the party to the orange crush. It's really floral, really aromatic, super energetic, and so that is why we are de-stemming this baby, so that we can get as much of her as possible into orange crush. Pressing the gorgeous Montanor Cremina. It's been fermenting on its skins for about a week, and it smells absolutely amazing. Now all of the free run is falling into the press here, and it gets sucked by the pump down and into the tote. And we'll settle in this tote overnight before we move it to barrel for malolactic fermentation. Welcome, Mondoose, to the last day of harvest at limited edition. Look at this glorious, glorious cluster of Mondoose. Let's talk about cluster morphology here for a second. So Syrah and Mondoose are related. And you can see that it kind of does have the same cluster morphology as Syrah does. Look at how big and long this main cluster is. And then it's got ridiculous shoulders, so big shoulders. It's not super dense in its cluster morphology, but then it's got all these wings as well. This is a farmer's, very happy place, having this much tonnage on a single cluster. Kind of different to Pinot Noir. This is very thick-skinned. It is very high acid and has pepperiness, a little bit of earthiness, and lots of that sort of plum, damson plum flavors to it as well. It's the last day of red harvest for us here at Limited Edition in the Willamette Valley, and we have this beautiful biodynamic grown and farmed Mondoose. Check out these clusters. We are very happy. They are beautiful. Look at them. Just massive, just gorgeous. Thick skins, loose clustered, no rot, and it's been raining for a couple of days. Rain, sun, and we don't have any rot. Beautiful loose clusters, super thick skins. This is where the importance of matching grape variety to climate, especially end of season ripening climates, is a real skill and can really give you some beautiful wines, because like many of us know, some of the best wines in the world are achieved by the flavors that come at the end of the growing season. Cheers, happy harvest 2024, everyone.